So today I'm going to be doing the 20 questions book tag. Last time I did a book tag, which was the Truth or Dare book tag, I said that I wanted to do more of these, and I'm so glad that Olivia from Stories for Coffee tagged me in this video. When I watched her video, I totally fell in love with this tag, and so I'm so excited to do it today. I also just realized, looking at her video again, we are wearing very similar colors at the moment, so that wasn't planned. I did that on accident. I just really wanted to wear this shirt. It's a very similar color to the shirt that she wore in her video. That's just how it's gonna happen today. It's also super hot, so I don't really know what to do with my hair at the moment. It's just kinda gonna move around every once in a while in the video. I'm sorry if it's distracting. It's just so hot, and I can't leave the windows open because there is so much noise going on outside. So starting with the first question, it's how many books is too many books in a series? So for me, I don't tend to read a lot of series. I felt like I did maybe a couple of years ago, but I've noticed that recently I have been starting series and then just never finishing them, which is kind of annoying, but I just find it really hard to focus on a series. I think my favorite length of a series, especially for like fantasy, is a duology. I just love a really good duology. I feel like it's a good, you know, part 1, part 2, and then it's over. I really appreciate that. I feel like once you get past maybe 4 books, that's when it starts to be like, okay, we can be done with this now. I feel like you're really dragging the series into the mud, and I think that's enough. The next question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? I don't know. It's really, I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with cliffhangers. It's difficult for me to say, oh, I love them, they're so much fun, because sometimes they are, but sometimes I'm just like, really? Do we really need to leave it on a cliffhanger? Come on, like, can't we just have like a moment of just everything feels good at this moment, everything feels right? But I understand that if it's like a first book in a series or whatever and you need to push it into the second book, you're probably gonna have a cliffhanger. That's just how it goes. And that might be why I don't read too many series anymore. So I feel like, you know, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're well done, sometimes they're poorly executed. It's just like with anything. I feel like it's hard to say that I really dislike or really love any sort of like trope, because they can just be done in any sort of fashion, and who knows if I'm gonna like it. The third question is hardcover or paperbacks. So if you would have asked me this question maybe a year and a half ago, maybe even a year ago, I would have said hardcover easily. Like, just immediately my answer would have been hardcover. But recently I have been falling in love with paperbacks. Like, just, I love them so much. I think that they're so much fun, and I really like the aesthetic of paperbacks. I don't know why, they just really work for me, and I've been picking them up so much more. I also think that this has to do with the fact that I've been picking up more adult books, and hardcover adult books are so expensive if you're not getting them from like Book of the Month. This is not sponsored by Book of the Month. Book of the Month does not sponsor me. They are free to do so, but they do not. But paperbacks are just so much cheaper than a hardcover. Like, if you're gonna get an adult hardcover, it's going to be at least $28. If you get an adult paperback, it's still gonna be expensive. It's gonna be like $16 or $17 or $18. But that's way cheaper than almost $30. So I feel a little bit better buying like an adult paperback. And I don't know, I just feel like adult literature kind of has that paperback vibe, whereas I'd much rather have a hardcover of a YA book. I don't know why that makes sense. It really doesn't, but that's just how I think in my brain. Question number 4 is favorite book. And this has changed drastically over the years. It's really hard for me to narrow down my favorite book. I feel like when I read a new favorite, that instantly becomes like my new answer for like, what's your favorite book? But even though I have read so many new favorites this year, you know, so many new adult favorites that I've loved, I'm going to have to stick with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I know I talk about this book too much. I am aware of that. But I love this book so much. It has lived within me ever since I read it a year ago. It's inexplicably amazing. I can't even try to explain how much I love this book, how much it has stuck with me, how much it resonated with me on such a personal, deep level. Like, Henry Strauss is just, he is me in a character. I relate to him so much. And even on like another level, I really relate to Addie as well, but mostly Henry. Like, I just really connected with Henry, and that entire book just really broke me in a way that no other book has broken me before. And I don't want to completely, you know, give all of that credit to V.E. Schwab, because yes, she wrote the book and it's amazing and it totally broke me. I feel like it would have broken me regardless. However, I feel like I also have to give a little bit of credit to Taylor Swift just for creating Folklore and for creating that soundtrack for this book. Because while I feel like I still would have loved The Invisible Life even without Folklore, it just added so much to the experience, and it really created this perfect storm of intense emotions. So yeah, I can't wait to reread The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, you know, sometime soon. I really want to take one of the copies that I have and annotate it. That'd be so much fun. I just haven't gotten around to it. I feel like I'm a little scared to relive that book because it was so harrowing to me. So yeah, I feel like my favorite book of all time, it has to go to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Number 5 is least favorite book, which is really difficult for me to choose because there are so many books that I just don't like, and I feel like that's even harder to choose compared to like favorite book of all time, because the favorite book of all time, that's like a really fun one to choose. Like, oh, I'm so excited to share my favorite book with you. But with my least favorite book, I feel a little bit less excited to share. I don't know if it's because I want to spare the author's feelings or whatever. I just, you know, it makes me feel kind of bad if I say, oh, I hated this book. And it would make me feel bad if I put like anyone's book that is like still living and with us into this category. So I think I'm gonna try to choose a book by somebody who is not alive at the moment. I'm gonna go with The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I hate that book with a burning passion. I read that book, I think I've read it 2 or 3 times for school. Once in high school and then I think twice in college. I hate that book so much. I cannot express to you my absolute disdain for Nathaniel Hawthorne and for The Scarlet Letter. Like, it's not even just the book, it's him as a person. Because in college, when we ended up reading The Scarlet Letter, it might have been the 3rd time I read it, we also read some of his own like personal writings or like just like nonfiction writings. And yeah, I did not like him as a person. I felt like he was just like very unlikable as a person, which I love unlikable characters, but unlikable people are a little bit harder for me to connect with. So yeah, I just don't like Nathaniel Hawthorne. I'm sorry. I know so many people love The Scarlet Letter. It's one of my mom's favorite books of all time, and I hate The Scarlet Letter. I hate it so much, but you know what? I'm glad it exists because then we wouldn't have Easy A, and I love the movie Easy A. Such a funny movie, never gets old. It aged pretty well, considering. Question number 6 is love triangles, yes or no? I think most of you would know my answer to this question because I have made a video about love triangles. This was a couple years ago, so I might need to make like an updated video, but I love love triangles so much. I can't even be embarrassed by my love for love triangles because they just really connect with me. I don't know why. I've never personally been in a love triangle. I've been in plenty of like friendship triangles where like I've had like 2 friends who really don't like each other but want to be friends with me, but we can't all get along. So that's happened, but I've never had it where it's like I have 2 love interests. That just never happened. I don't even know if I'd be able to handle 2 love interests. I can hardly ever handle 1. So 2 just seems to be gratuitous to me, but I love love triangles in fiction. They're just so much fun. They add a lot of drama. They add a lot of complexity of emotions, and I don't know, I find them to be so much fun. And yeah, sometimes they're not well written, and that's fine. There are so many tropes that people love that are done poorly sometimes, and that doesn't mean that the trope itself is bad. It just means that that author wasn't able to execute that trope well. So does that mean that love triangles overall are bad, or does it mean that some authors don't know how to write love triangles? I think I'm gonna go with the second one. My favorite love triangle of all time is the one in Shatter Me between Juliet, Warner, and Adam. It's Chef's Kiss. Number 7 is the most recent book you just couldn't finish. I haven't DNF'd a book in a really, really long time. I genuinely can't remember the last time I DNF'd a book, because recently I've just kind of been pushing myself through the books that I read. Even if I don't like them, I will continue to read them, especially if they're an audiobook. It feels like that happens a lot more with audiobooks than physical books. So I will typically just, you know, push myself through. We're gonna read this book and it's gonna get done. And it hasn't really put me in a slump, which, you know, knock on wood, I'm really grateful for. But I guess the last book that I technically DNF'd was Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, but it's not necessarily the fact that I DNF'd it because it was bad or I didn't like it. I was just kind of getting overwhelmed by the content. It was really, really tough to read and to consume, and to be like, oh my god, this guy sucks. Like, he is truly, truly trash. And it's kind of crazy to me that people would read that book and think that the author or the book itself is like romanticizing this, because when I was reading the book, it felt so clear to me, like, this is disgusting. Like, there's no way that, you know, this author is writing this and being like, oh, this is fine, this is cool, because like clearly the author is being like, no, this guy's a fucking weirdo. So yeah, that's been the toughest part of reading Lolita, is just like, how do you even read it without just like being disgusted the entire time? It's really hard, but it is really beautifully written. It's like so well done. It's just tough to read. So I had to DNF it just for a moment. I definitely am gonna come back to the book. I needed to put it down. Question number 8 is a book you're currently reading, and I actually have 2 books that I'm currently reading. I have them right here. So the first one is Daughters of Nuri by Rennie K. Amayo, and yes, I finally picked this book up. I am currently 21 pages into it. I'm on chapter 4. It's a really beautifully written book, I have to say. It's absolutely gorgeously written. But I can see where people are saying that it's a slow read, because I'm only 20 pages into this book and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty slow. It's a slow book already. I do have it as an audiobook, so I am excited to listen to the audiobook and read along with like the physical copy. So we'll kind of have it, you know, move forward pretty quickly. But yeah, it's definitely a slow read. I'm genuinely surprised that so many people were like, yeah, it's slow. And I kind of was like, oh yeah, whatever, okay, sure. But no, it's definitely slow. It's beautifully written, but very slow. And the other book that I am currently reading, I also have as an audiobook and physical copy. That's The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves. And oh my gosh, this book is really good. I am so glad that this book is as entertaining and fun and relatable as I hoped it would be. I actually had my mom pick this book for me out of like my entire shelves. I was like, hey, please, can you just like pick a book for me to read next? I really don't know what I want to read. And, you know, just pick anything. It doesn't, you know, I don't have any like whatever. So she ended up picking this book from my shelves, and she was like, yeah, read this one. And I was so excited that she picked this book up, because I just didn't ever really know when I was gonna pick it up. So it was nice to have her pick it and just like, I have to read it. Thankfully, I found the audiobook on Hoopla, so that was really fun. I'm so excited. And I'm already like well past the halfway point for this book. I think I have maybe 4 hours left of the audiobook. So it's gonna go by really fast because I listened to it on 2 times speed. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this book, and the main character is so relatable, and it's really fun, so I totally recommend it. Question number 9 is last book you recommended to someone. And that's kind of difficult. I feel like I haven't really recommended a book lately. Not in the like typical way of recommending books to people. I did recently do a TikTok where I recommended books based on the Taylor Swift album. So like Taylor Swift, Fearless, Speak Now, Red, whatever. So I did that. I don't know if that counts, but I also did recently recommend Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I loved, spoiler alert, it was such a fun little romance and it was so cute, and it has a plus size main character. It deals a lot with fandom, which I really enjoyed. And so yeah, I guess that's like kind of the last book that I recommended, and that was earlier today. The next question number 10, is oldest book you've read as in publication date. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the oldest book would be that I've technically read, because I guess it would possibly be Antigone. I'm guessing, because I've read Antigone. I don't know if it's not necessarily a book. I don't know what we're classifying as a book, because would it be like Shakespeare? Is that technically a book? Would it be Antigone? Is that technically a book? It's a play, it's written, it's bound as a book. I don't know, but Antigone was written somewhere around 441 BC. So that's probably the oldest book that I've ever read. I don't know what else would be considered like the oldest book that I've read besides like Shakespeare. Question number 11 is newest book you've read for, you know, publication date. I haven't read an ARC recently, so I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be an ARC. Let me see what I've read recently on Goodreads. I actually don't know what's been published recently. I'd probably say, let's see when the Anthropocene Reviewed was published. So that was May 18th. What date was The Beautiful Ones published? April. Okay, so we're getting close. The Witch King was published June 1st. That's probably that one then, right? Or is it One Last Stop? June 1st. Okay. So yeah, I'm guessing it's going to be either The Witch King by H.E. Edgman or One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which is pretty cool. Those are both queer books. And those are the last two books, I guess, that I've read that have been published the most recently. I haven't really read very many recently published books since then, besides, you know, like the Anthropocene Reviewed, that was back in May. The Beautiful Ones was published in April. And then all the rest of the books that I've read since then have been published, I think, in either 2020 or before that. So yeah, I think that those two are probably the newest books that I've read. Question number 12 is favorite author, and that's gotta be one of my most difficult questions to answer, because I don't typically read books from like a specific author, even if like they're my fave. I feel like so many of my favorite books are written by completely different authors. So it's not like I have like that specific author that I'm like dedicated to. Like some people are dedicated to Cassandra Clare, some people are dedicated to Leigh Bardugo. I guess like before this year specifically, I might have said Leigh Bardugo, but I wouldn't say that now. I guess I'm gonna say that if I have to choose like an auto buy author, like if this person publishes a book, I will buy it, it's probably going to be Zoraida Cordova. I love her so much. I love her books so much. I actually just got her new book as my book of the month. So once again, not sponsored by Book of the Month. Book of the Month, you are totally free to sponsor me. Go ahead, please do it. But I did choose her newest book for Book of the Month. So I'm gonna have to say Zoraida Cordova or possibly Tejada Mafi. I love Tejada Mafi. I met her at Y'all West. That was so much fun. That was back in 2019. That was a lot of fun, and I was so excited to go to 2020. Don't want to bring that up. Yeah, I ended up meeting Tejada Mafi back in 2019 at Y'all West. I had such an amazing conversation with her, and it was so nice. I'll insert pictures here because I do have pictures of us together. We're so cute. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say either Zoraida Cordova or Tejada Mafi. Question number 13 is buying books or borrowing books? And this one's really easy for me to answer, and that's gotta be buying books, because I know it sounds bad. I have so many library options. I have access to the library. I will say that I do like borrowing audiobooks. That's my favorite thing to do. But I don't like borrowing physical books, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people question that because, you know, for obvious reasons. and they're like, well, borrowing books is so much easier, it's cheaper, you know, you can just bring them back to the library. And I'm like, yes, in theory you can, but for me, I have a very difficult time, A, remembering that I borrowed the book, B, remembering to return the book, C, remembering to even bring the book with me whenever I leave my house so I could potentially go drop off that book. So when that happens and I forget all of those little steps along the way, I end up keeping those books for months and possibly years, and then racking up huge fines. And then I might as well have ended up splurging and going to Barnes & Noble and buying any book I wanted, because at that point it's like $100 worth of fines, and what am I gonna do? So for me, borrowing books is not always the smartest. The next question is a book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. Ooh, there are a few books like that. As you can tell just by watching a couple of videos on my channel, I bring up one specific book quite a lot. It just seems to be brought up so much, and it's not really my fault. I'm not, you know, trying to bring up Red, White, and Royal Blue. It just ends up happening. It's a very popular book. I didn't personally like it. I would say any John Green book besides the Anthropocene Reviewed, that's just one of my favorite books of all time, but his fiction books are not my favorite. I don't like them. I would say another book, obviously, was Rule of Wolves. So many people loved Rule of Wolves, and I hated it with a burning passion. I do not like that book. So you kind of have a couple of ones to choose from. I'm losing my voice already. Bookmarks or dog ears? And I'm gonna show you my bookmark jar. Here are all of my bookmarks. Aren't they cute? I have so many of them. So I guess the answer to that question is bookmarks. I love bookmarks. Here's one from Book of the Month. Here's one from the Book Loft, another one from the Book Loft. Here's one from Barnes & Noble. Here's a random one from Sweet Black Waves. We have one from Basically Brit. I ordered this one recently, it's so cute. We have a Spanish version of The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. And yeah, so we have like quite a few different bookmarks. They're all here, they're all fun. So yeah, I really, really love bookmarks. They are just so perfect to me, and they always come in handy. I just find them so much better than dog-earing a book, but I don't mind dog-earing books. It's not like against my moral code to dog-ear a book. I do it all the time. I personally really, really love bookmarks, and I also love supporting small businesses and buying their bookmarks. Question number 16 is a book you can always reread. That's really difficult because I don't reread books very often. I'm gonna have to say possibly Ferris by Gail Carson Levine. It's been one of my favorite books since I was in middle school, so I'm gonna say that like that's probably the book that I would reread the most. I have reread it multiple times. I love it so much. Another book that I've reread multiple times is Shatter Me by Tahada Mafi, and then also A Study in Charlotte. That entire series I've reread multiple times. I love it. Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, Much Ado About Nothing. Those plays are like my faves. I reread them all the time, at least once a year, if not more. I haven't done my Hamlet reread yet, so I think I have to do a Hamlet reread soon, but I'm kind of overdue for that one, so we'll have to do that. But yeah, I think that those are mainly the books that I tend to reread. Question number 17 is, can you read while hearing music? And yes, I even have a video all about how I read while listening to music and what kind of music I like to listen to when I read. It kind of depends. Currently, because I have been reading so much adult contemporary fiction, I have been listening to my playlist called Make Me Your Future History, which I will link down below. You can totally follow me on Spotify. I have nothing to hide on my Spotify. I do listen to some embarrassing music, but I really don't care if people know. So yeah, I've been listening to Make Me Your Future History, and that's been really fun. It has like Renegade by Big Red Machine featuring Taylor Swift, Loneliness by Birdie, Chemtrails Over the Country Club by Lana Del Rey, a bunch of Phoebe Bridgers on there, some Japanese Breakfast, some Claro, some Haim. It has Maggie Rogers, Orla Gartland, Lorde, Greta Van Fleet. So yeah, it's like a really good playlist, and it works really well for adult contemporary fiction, which is fun. But then other than that, I will listen to like movie scores. I really like to listen to Star Wars scores a lot when I'm reading like fantasy or sci-fi. I also like to listen to the Little Women soundtrack, not the 2019 version, the 1994 version. It has the best soundtrack. The next question is one point of view or multiple points of view. Ooh, that is a good question, and I feel like this has multiple answers. So I do like one singular perspective, especially if it's contemporary, and that perspective has to be written in first person. It can be written in third person, but I don't like it. But if it's fantasy, then I prefer it to be written in third person, and I prefer it to have multiple perspectives. I feel like having a fantasy book written in one perspective really limits the scope of the story. I feel like especially with fantasy, you kind of need to see multiple points of view within that one story to kind of make it all make sense. So yeah, I'm pretty picky when it comes to that kind of stuff. I really focus in on that, and I feel like, you know, as a writer, you make that decision purposefully. You don't make it just to make a decision. You don't just like, you know, oh, I guess I'll write this book in first person. Okay, I guess I'll write just one perspective. Like, you're not just like, okay, draw it out of a hat. As a writer myself, like when I'm writing something, I really think hard about if I want multiple perspectives, if I want it to be in first person or third person. So I'm always intrigued by, you know, when people make a weird decision like Casey McQuiston. It intrigues me. It confuses me. So yeah, I feel like, you know, I just have a lot of opinions on that. The second to last question, number 19, is do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? This also depends. If I'm listening to an audiobook, I can go the entire day listening to that audiobook and be done with it in like 5 hours. Or if I'm reading a book physically, sometimes it's so good that I do just sit there in my bed or sit there outside or sit there wherever and read the entire book in one sitting. It really just depends, because there are some books that I've been reading for months that I just haven't picked up, that I cannot find it in myself to like read the book. So it really just depends like on how good the book is, how engaging it is, how fast-paced it's written, whatever. There's so many factors that goes into whether I'm going to read a book in one sitting or if I'm going to read it over multiple sittings, over multiple days, months, years even. I think the longest time it ever took me to read a book was like over multiple years, and that was The Night Circus. So I did end up really liking that book though. And the very last question is, who do you tag? So I'm not really sure who I want to tag. I think I'll probably have to come up with that after the video. So, you know, we'll see who I end up tagging down below. I'll make sure to tag them both in the description and also on Twitter, because I feel like it's so much easier to see who's tagging you on Twitter than it is to see who's tagging you on YouTube. I always forget to check if anybody's tagged me in anything on YouTube, so Twitter and YouTube, I'll do both. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope that it was fun to do this 20 questions with you all. And even if you're not tagged in this video, feel free to say that I tagged you. Feel free to do this tag yourself. I really like these questions. I think that they're super fun, and there's some of the questions in there that I haven't answered before for whatever reason, and it's really fun to find like new little tags to do, and this one was definitely a lot of fun. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and Storygraph, TikTok. All the links are going to be down below in the description, along with who I tagged and all of the questions, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!
Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you. Oh.